All right, Dennis. So, we've spoken before about you suffering from mental health because I have come on your show during May on your mental health awareness month, and
Correct.
we've talked about mental health. So, name some kind of mental health that you've dealt with in your past or currently.
Um, well, like a lot of people in this world, I deal with anxiety um, to where I got to the point where I started self-medicating.
Mm-hmm.
In dealing with that, it was in dealing with that I realized that I also suffer from depression
Mm-hmm.
and how deep that really, really goes from just like, oh, I'm feeling bad to all the way to not being able to get up out of bed and like really function properly. Or there's sometimes where it's like every thought is like a real true effort, and it's like you really got to force yourself to like push through because all you want to do is just do nothing. So I'm sure other people have.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I've dealt with. Um, so
But do you feel as a man you get more pressure on you? Does that contribute, you think, to your mental health? I asked that because one of my friends I was speaking to a couple weeks ago, he was saying how he was, was going through some things mentally, and he was like, as a man, we have to provide, we have to do this, da da da. So, do you feel as a man that you have a lot more pressure? Does any of that contribute to your mental health or no?
um, not really so much. I think what happens, or at least for me, is
Mhm.
that you you are raised to believe that you can handle any situation if you just push harder.
Mhm.
When times get tough, the tough get going, and all of that. And so you truly believe that okay, I just gotta, if I just push a little hard, if I just tighten up, then it'll be okay, and I'll get through it. And yeah, you can get through it, but it's not a healthy way to deal with it. So it
True.
wasn't until I
True.
started really understanding and realizing that I wasn't just having a bad day, or I wasn't just sad and I just didn't know why. I had to recognize that I'm going through a bout of depression,
Mhm.
and it's not a 1 hour thing or a 1 day thing.
Mhm.
It's gonna last as long as it lasts,
Mhm.
and there, I used to think I could push myself out of it until I couldn't anymore,
Mhm.
and that's when it really started getting bad for me because what used to work didn't work,
Yeah.
but I wasn't comfortable enough talking to anybody about it to try and find out what the next level of assistance was. And it really wasn't until I started, um, acknowledging and doing things for Mental Health Awareness Month
Mhm.
that I started to look at what I was going through and recognizing, like, oh, okay, you know what? Again, it's not a bad day. Like, you're having a whole bout of depression, and it's not going to just change or go away. Like, now I actually have to understand that I'm in about so
Mhm.
that I know how to operate while I'm in it. You know what I'm saying? If I have something to do, I got to start writing lists down and checking off stuff because I'll have 1,000 thoughts in my head and nothing will get done. And
Did you have a specific event that happened that?
triggered,
Yeah.
um, I don't know. I don't know. I probably do.
Mhm.
Um, I probably do in my past when I was a kid because I went
Mhm.
through a lot of stuff that being um, being a young man growing up in New York.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't want to get any more labels. I was already young. I was already black. I was already a man.
Mhm.
Um, I was, West Indian. Um, and I really thought that, if I go to people and talk with people about this, I'm going to get that label. That label of crazy is something that's really real as
Yep.
far as a fear
I
for
agree.
people. And it's not that you're crazy, you're just going through something, but that's how we're raised acknowledging it in our head. So, because of that, it's like, oh, I'm not crazy. I know I'm not crazy. And it's not that you're crazy. You just
Mhm.
have, what I'm saying, emotional situations that affect you differently. And if you don't acknowledge them, they have some long term effects that, what I'm saying, will ruin. I've had whole weeks where I really didn't get up.
How many weeks do you think? What's the longest you think you've had like a spiral?
The longest bout that I had that was really bad was probably like about it was probably about like 2 weeks.
Mhm.
It was like 2 weeks of like
Not getting up, not
yeah,
eating.
really not eating. I knew it was bad when I wasn't bathing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, growing up, Jamaican, we are very, 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 very clean people. You know what I'm saying? We don't
Yeah.
have. So it was like, okay, you know what I'm saying? Like day one, day two, all right, I'm just laying around and stuff like that. Day three, I'm like, all right, let me get up and get something to eat or whatever. And it's like day four, I'm like, yo, hold on. I haven't bathed in like 3, 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't like normally even somebody saying something like that is a trick and I'm gonna get up and do it. And I
Mm-hmm.
was just like, I'll get to it. I'll get to it. Everything in my life was I will get to it.
Mm-hmm.
It literally like put a stop on everything, and that's what I had to realize. The bout was that long because I wasn't dealing with it. Because I was
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, I'm just gonna let it run its course or whatever, and I wasn't acknowledging it or dealing with it as um, a depression bout or what I'm saying, a mental health situation or crisis. And I mean, luckily for me, I was able to get out of it
Mm-hmm.
before anything detrimental happened. But again, that was when I realized how deep the rabbit hole goes. You know what I'm saying? And that's when I realized that there's truly a sunken place. Like how they say in that movie Get Out, the sunken place,
I didn't
depression.
see it. I'll take your word for it.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
But if you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
But yeah, so it's like it was literally in a sunken place where I felt like there was darkness all around me, but I could see the world going on. And I was walking through it. I was
Mm-hmm.
in the world, but I wasn't connected to it. You know what I'm saying? I was so detached because in my mind I was like I was just tired. So
What do you typically do when you have an episode? You just let it run its course?
honestly, I normally try and let it run its course. I
Mm-hmm.
just make sure that I acknowledge it so I don't put undue pressure on
Mm-hmm.
myself to um, to achieve anything because I know I'm not normal in that state.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not gonna have my normal movements, my normal activity, my normal achievements.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but recognizing it, I don't put that much pressure on myself, and I also take steps to try and get myself out of it.
What kind of steps?
Um, a lot more. You know how they say like you have self help check-ins and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So what I really do is I start to really check in with myself. You know
So
what I'm
what
saying?
do you do?
Meditation. I sit down. Music is really, really a big, big help.
Mm-hmm.
Like
I agree.
I will notice that my environment is a reflection of myself. So my place won't be dirty, but it'll be cluttered. There'll be things everywhere. It's not
Mm-hmm.
dirt because I can't do dirt,
Yeah, yeah.
but it'll be cluttered. Like what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll look up and I'll look around. And I'm like, okay, you know what? And I'll put on like some old school R&B, like the stuff your parents used to play in the house.
Hey, I'm
And it's,
old soul too. I listen to
you know what I'm
some
saying?
stuff, but yeah.
I'll put that on and I'll just get to cleaning and it's almost like symbolically as I'm cleaning up my space, I'm taking time to really clean myself and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm getting this thing shiny and tight. And it's something about achieving little tasks that
Mm-hmm.
make you start to feel better.
Yeah.
And in that I'm able to carry not so much even get out of it necessarily because it's going to be done when it's done, but I feel better about myself. I start to interact more with the world on a better level and I often get more things done.
And you wear multiple hats because you're a chef, a radio host, a poet. So you do multiple things, and so the reason I'm bringing that up is because you get these gigs. So if you have an episode, do you work through the gig or do you just cancel, or what do you do?
Um, well, before I used to work through it. Sometimes in working through it, depending on the gig itself,
Mm-hmm.
um, it would actually help me out. I do all the other stuff because I also run a nonprofit
Mm-hmm.
where we do like book scholarships for high school graduates. So
Mm-hmm.
I know that it's important that I achieve, I get my tasks done because
Mm-hmm.
my work helps other people.
Yeah.
But like recently, I really just kind of like elevated to a higher level because I had a catering event actually just this past week that I was supposed to do, and I mentally wasn't there,
Mm-hmm.
and I had went out, had bought all the supplies and everything, and I was getting ready to do it. And normally, I've had this happen a bunch of times where it's a catering event, and I just say, okay, I'm gonna lose myself in the cooking and do it,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel horrible for like the next 2 days, like just absolutely
Trying to get
dead to the
yourself up
world.
out of it.
And I put in so much energy that my well is like run absolutely dry. And I was like, you know what? It's a catering event. I have customers who come there monthly expecting my food, but I had to take the day off. So I told everybody, I was like, I just took a Kyrie moment. Took a break. But seriously, and I honestly, I felt so much better for it because I wasn't putting the pressure on myself that I gotta achieve this and get this thing done.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I recognized that I wasn't feeling up to it, and that's okay. You know what I'm saying? That's the number one thing I need to tell people is like, yo, when you're not feeling right, like acknowledge it and recognize that it's okay.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The first step is really acknowledge it. That's the only way you're gonna work through it. So
But you did something for yourself because if you would went through with the gig, you would have been, doing something. Well, you
I
yourself
would
as
just
well.
push
Yeah.
myself, yeah. And it was like the day of, I was sitting there and I watched the clock change. Like I watched 4 hours pass. And I was like, what the hell?
You didn't move.
I didn't move. I hadn't do anything. And in my mind, I'm doing all my checklists and, okay, I'm going to do this. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do some tacos this time. I'm going to do some shredded chicken and all that.
But it wasn't
Get
happening.
my people to go. Before I looked up, I was like, yo, where did all the time go? And I'm like, all right, you are not right. Because normally I'm up early. I'm getting all my prep work done and all this stuff here. And I enjoy cooking. Like I'm coming out with a cookbook, a dating cookbook. And so I enjoy all the aspects of it. But yeah, man, it's like we are human. So we are definitely fallible just by design. And but the greatest thing that we have is our ability to adapt and to deal with situations.
Yes.
Sometimes we deal with things, and in doing it, if we don't acknowledge everything that's going on, we're not really doing ourselves a true service.
Yeah.
So it comes back and bites us in the behind on the back end. But just being aware and recognizing it is one of the biggest steps. I'm not saying it's everything, but it's the most honest thing that you can do for yourself to start with. Is just say, hey, you know what? I'm not right today. Even if you don't know why, just acknowledging that, hey, you know what? I'm just not right today is a huge step.
Call someone or don't call someone. How do you deal with it? You just don't call anybody at the time.
Well, here's another thing too, and that's why there's a reason why people go and have what's the word? A therapist.
Yeah. Get it out.
Yeah, because it's really good to talk it out, but two, it's also important the person that you talk to about it. That you have somebody who really understands or just a really good listener. Not every friend can handle it, and not every advice is always going to be good advice for you in particular. So, be mindful, but yeah, talking it through, even talking to yourself. If you have meditation moments and stuff like that, say, okay, you know what? All right, start thinking about what you're feeling
and then
what's off about it. Acknowledging and say, hey, you know what? I'm feeling this, but this is not me, but this is where I'm at right now. Just so you don't, this is what happens. Sometimes we beat up on ourselves for
too much,
not being our normal self.
Yeah.
And that's definitely not going to help.
But some people can't afford therapists. So some people, they can't afford therapists. Or they haven't even left their house. So that was another reason I did this mental health check-in. I started because this is free for one, and number two, they don't have to leave their house to do it. And what you just told me in these last couple of minutes, even the clutter thing, I didn't even know about that. So my thing is, so if someone watches this, I'm sure someone's going to do the same thing because I'll pull up to your job. You're at the radio station right now. But my point in doing that was because you can have an episode at any time.
Absolutely.
A mental health breakdown at any time. So you might have to click off the air, go to the restroom for a second. It can happen at any time. So I wanted to stop in on you for a few minutes to have this mental health check-in with you. So you're welcome. So I want to ask, how do you feel just for someone just checking on you? No hidden motives, they're just checking on you. How do you feel?
It feels good. What it does, sometimes when you're dealing with mental health, because it's such a internal thing, you really do feel alone. That you're going through it alone.
That's
or what
true.
have you. And it's not saying that the person that's checking in on you is going to solve anything, but it forces you to realize that you're not alone. If somebody's reaching out, someone's talking with you, you are not alone. You may not feel that they understand everything, But it's very, very important to know that you're not alone. And sometimes you gotta process things. You gotta let those emotions go through. There's times where I'll sit down and I'll have tears that just fall out, and
Yeah.
I have no idea why. And before I used to feel a way about it. Now I just let them go.
It's just a release.
I just let them go. Whatever function they had, they're gonna have their function and they're gonna work. And I go ahead and I let it go.
Just let it flow.
Allow your body to process the things because it is important. And
That's
again,
true.
we're not perfect, but
We
a
are
little bit
human.
helps.
Yes, and we are human. So, D, I want to thank you for
Thank you.
You're welcome, and I appreciate your story, and I hope this inspires even just one person to talk about it. Even hearing your story, talk about it, not harm themselves, and
Right.
think that anything's wrong with them because there's nothing wrong with them.
One thing I do want to say, and this is so important for me particularly. Um, Once I started acknowledging what I was going through, I would write about it because I'm a poet and stuff like that. But I would just make little posts, and for me, my posts were about what I was going through. And I used to get a lot of people that would find solace in it because they were going through the same thing. But my family, they would take it as a negative. They're like, "Why are you posting this and why are you putting business out and stuff like that?" It doesn't matter. You do it for yourself. Your
Yep.
family is not going to understand always, but what you do for yourself and for your mental health is for yourself
And
and your mental health. So please don't be afraid to do it. Don't be afraid that you're going to be looked at or scrutinized by your family